Kia ora koutou ki ngā tangata nei. Kia ora koutou ki ngā kai whakaoko o te reo I rangi o Waiheke. Kia ora koutou ki ngā kai tono, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Welcome everyone to the great Waiheke Radio Local Board Candidates Debate. This is the third or fourth time we've run these debates. It's our pleasure to encourage and promote local democracy. It's lovely to have you all here. We have a number of candidates we'll introduce to you in a moment. Some of the candidates aren't here tonight. Kathy Boyles has been out of town. She's an apology. She will be joining the meeting later this evening as soon as she gets off the ferry and can make her way up to the theatre. Russell Chambers and Greg Wyatt, two candidates standing, have chosen not to participate in the debate, so they're not here tonight. We invited everyone along, of course. And yeah, it's our pleasure to welcome the 10 of 12 candidates who are here, vying for those 5 positions on the Waiheke Local Board. Voting opens on the 16th of September, that's why we're having the debate tonight, so you're all informed as those voting papers come out, and you need to have those returned by noon on October the 8th. So we'll be canvassing a number of different issues tonight, so we're just going to kind of run through and introduce our candidates, and if you're not familiar with them, they can raise their hands. We have Olivia Lecoeur, Bianca Ransom, Robin Tucker, Paul Robbins, Jack Henley, Ian Anderson, Kylie Matthew, Paul Walden, and Jim all of them for attending tonight. So the format is we're going to start off, we've asked each of the candidates to make an opening statement. We asked them to speak to what they see as the priorities for the next term of the local board. They'll talk to that, then we'll get into some questions, and then towards the end of the debate, we're going to give them another chance to make a statement, and they'll be able to make reference to what others have raised, reflect on issues that have come up during the meeting, and so on. So let's get into it. I'm just going to shift microphones. Over to this one. Over to this one. Yeah. There we go. And we're just going to run through these. We'll rotate around the order as we go through the evening. But first up, for 1.5 minutes to talk about priorities for the coming 3-year term, Olivia Lecoeur.
Okay, I'll be quick and fast. I actually don't like to be on the stage. I'm standing for you guys, and to be honest, I want to fix the potholes and the roads. If we, seriously, it's very easy. And if we don't have proper infrastructure, we're not going to be able to invite people. We're not going to look at the residents. So Downer is going to be on my watch. Is there anyone from Downer? And then basic infrastructure. Look at accommodation in the sense I would like to extend Whakanefa. The kids who come here who make the business. Hello, Rosemary. The kids who come here and make the businesses work, are left. After 2 weeks they have to fuck off, and I would like them to stay. I would like to deal with the Oletangi Sport Park, make sure that people can stay overnight, and have hospice beds, and so hospice so we can keep families close, and also have a huge community. Right for an X-ray machine.
That's 1.5 minutes. I meant to bring a bell.
Much like Mick Jagger, Olivia kind of ventured out into the crowd there. So yeah, thanks for the initiative, but we'll just keep the mic on the stand, so we don't need to do that every time. But good luck to you. No worries, but next up, Bianca Ransom.
So I've been on Waiheke since 1984, and I've seen the island go through many, many changes. I also understand what it means to love this island, to care for this island and what the community needs. I believe that in this current time we are facing a climate crisis, a biodiversity crisis, and we know the state of the Hauraki Gulf. We need to be making sure that we are advocating for the well-being of our whenua, for our moana, for our land and our ocean, to ensure that this unique and beautiful place that we call home is maintained and cared for. There are many people on Waiheke who are struggling with housing at the moment. There is a critical balance that we must strike in order to make sure that we can have the housing available for our elderly of Waiheke who are not necessarily homeowners, and also for our workers and in the tourism and with the tourism industry on Waiheke. Also, I really strongly believe that there is a real opportunity for us to increase the participation of the community in food resilience. The cost of fresh produce in Aotearoa rose 17% over the last year. Farmers have just warned us that there is extreme weather on the way and we must prepare for food resilience. So I believe that there is an opportunity as being part of the local board to improve what we are already doing on the island, as well as manage our food waste on the island, which we currently don't do.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Fair prices for berries as well is a priority, and an understanding of legislation is really important.
But not keeping to time.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
So 1.5 minutes, and kia ora tātou. Thank you very much for coming this evening.
And I'd like to reassure the candidates there will be plenty of opportunity to canvass these other issues as well as we move through the meeting. Next up, Robin Tucker.
Kia ora everybody, for those who don't know me, I'm Robin Tucker. I've been a resident on the island for 17 years. I'm an IT professional. I work in Auckland City, and for 15 of the years on the island I've commuted back and forth on the Fullers ferries. I've been a board member for the last 3 years, and the reason that I stood in 2019 was off of the back of a dire season of the Fullers ferries and rising prices and the need for somebody to do something about that. The second reason that I stood was that I had heard that we had a board that for some of its term wasn't getting very much headway at Auckland Council because of the manner in which we conducted our relationships. And I know that we're a feisty bunch, but I decided to stand and offer up my skills in corporate work, 25 years of those skills, to be able to start to respectfully negotiate with those council-controlled organisations and council that we need on our side to get things done for Waiheke. So the ferry campaign is not over. We are very nearly there. With the the backing of some of the board members, we were able to get in front of the Minister very early in the term, and he has pushed play on the order in council to remove the exempt status of Waiheke from the Auckland Public Transport Network, and we are on the way to fairer fares for Waiheke, including access potentially to those child-free weekends, community services card holder fares, and so on. That work's not done, and I'm here to make sure that we can do that.
Thank you. Now, Norm Robbins.
Good evening. Priorities in 90 seconds. Well, I'll mention four projects that I'd like to see. First is a review of the planning regulations around visitor accommodation as opposed to permanent resident accommodation, because there may well be visitor accommodation on the island. The owners would be happy to rent out permanently, so we need to have a look at that and see what's possible. The second one I'd say is that we're sending far too much green waste to landfill at the moment, and one of the problems of that is the limitations on the mulcher at green acres. So I'd like to see us get a new mulcher, because it's a double whammy when you send all green waste to landfill, because there's carbon footprint in taking it to landfill, and then it releases methane when it's in the landfill. And ultimately we need to be composting everything we can on the island. Third thing I'd say is I'd like to see motor vehicles removed from the esplanade between Blackpool and Surfdale. That's been talked about many times, I raised it at the Transport Forum a couple of years ago. We have petitions about it as well. AT know that it can be done with a pedestrian wall, but nothing's happening, so we need to give that a kick along. And the last thing I'd mention is I'd like to have more community grants available, and particularly in the environmental area now, and I'm talking about sort of vegetation restoration, tree planting in reserves, community gardens, that sort of thing, to improve food resilience, as well as the grants for culture and arts and sports, because they're really community building activities that generate a lot of cohesion in the society.
Kia ora.
Kath Henley.
That's a trick.
That's a really strange way to hold a microphone. Because I'm just the average height. Nobody's done that for me for a long time.
She gets mama.
There. So presumably my time starts shortly.
Your time starts now.
Kia ora koutou. This is the third time I've stood here. I'm going to offer the same things I've offered before. To care for you, to care for our environment, to care for this place, to build the best relationships we can, to get the most done that we can.
Yeah, a bit closer to the mic.
Bit close, does we start again? In the last 3 years, but prior, and Robin's mentioned this, we've been working hard with ministers. So we are only one of 2 boards that goes direct to central government because we're not part of the ISMIS and we've got our own issues. So we already have relationships with the current Minister of Transport. We've got relationships with some of the other ministers as well. So what I am offering is continuity. What I'm also offering is an opportunity, because I think we've got some excellent new candidates, is to actually spend plenty of time divulging absolutely everything I know, which I do all of the time. I divulge every meeting I go to. So, and the content of that, and the conversations I have. But I need to be able to be in a position to see succession happening, and I think we all do, and I'd really like to appeal to you to be really methodical about this when you put a board together, because you put the board together, not us. And that requires skills and diversity. It requires experience, and in terms of skills, we have dealt with 55 pieces of legislation and or policy in the last 3 years. We need to keep going on the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Now, Blair Anderson. That's it. Thank you. I think Kat forgot to mention it would be optimum if we got a board that was all the same height. Okay, take it away, Blair.
I'm about average height. He honore, he korore ki tatu I runga rawa, he mauna runga ki te matua te whenua. Nei rāna mihi atu ki a koutou I tēnei pō. Ka tukunga mihi atu ki a koutou I tēnei wā o te reo Māori, o reira kia kaha ki te kōrero Māori. E te huinga, e te nuinga, e te tuinga, ko rarau tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Good evening, everybody. I quickly want to touch on the priorities that I have that I think are important to progress if I were to be elected to the Waiheke Local Community Board. First of those is around whakapiki te whānau. I think we have an opportunity to uplift the families in need in mind, body and spirit by ensuring that there's a coordinated attempt at providing services and continuing to advocate for those services that we still need to operate on the island here. We also have an opportunity to provide for our rangatahi or our youth and help them to develop, grow and provide educational opportunities. The second of my priorities that I have is around whakapakarita hapori, and I want to bring my skills and experience to strengthen the board's
strategic partnerships with iwi and central government. Thirdly, I have whakamana te taia, and I want to bring my experience that I bring from having worked and lived with Te Awa Tupua, the Whanganui River Settlement, where we used engagement and education to drive a holistic approach to managing our environments.
Kia ora.
Nei rā mi ia te kapa, te tēnā.
And now Connie Matthews.
Ko maunga tanipa te maunga, ko Tokerau Beach te wana, ko Kahutia Nui te tūpuna, ko Ngāti Kahu te iwi, ko Kylie Matthews tōku ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm a current member of the local board, and I have, after my first term, I learned and I experienced the systems and the processes within Auckland Council. I now stand here before you as a second term candidate who is wanting to fulfil the ambitions that I set out on the first one, which is our rangatahi, our youth kaupapa, until they're able to stand up here and vote for themselves when we lower the voting age to 16. I'd also like to, food resilience is huge. Our community gardens need a real boost in providing our food on our island. And also I would really like to work with the community to solve the community issues together. I look forward to tonight's evening. Kia ora.
Thank you, Paul Warren. Good evening. Kia ora koutou. My name is Paul Walden. I'm a candidate for the Waiheke Local Board and have been an elected voice for our community now for 10 years, 5 of those as the chairperson. I'm standing again because Waiheke is a community and place that I love and care deeply about. My children live here, my parents live here, my parents' parents lived here, and likewise a generation or two before that. I want to ensure that our island home remains as special for my children and grandchildren as it has for my forebears. And in doing so, that our community is celebrated for looking after the diversity that makes our island so special. I'm a builder, an employer, businessman, conservationist. I have a sound understanding of local government law and enjoy the benefits of 10 years' experience on the local board. It has been reported that I am sporting a record low attendance at local board meetings. My view has been clear from the outset that democracy should occur in public, not behind closed doors. That is the premise of the Local Government Act and the concept of democracy, and also the values of our community. And for that reason, I haven't this term attended the behind closed doors workshops and do not intend to into the future. We have some big issues to tackle as a community. Our community has experienced gentrification on steroids over the past decade and a half, and we must work together openly to address the impacts of this.
Sorry, Paul, that's it.
Thank you.
Minute.
Thank you. And Jim Hanna.
Hear me, everyone? Is that okay? Thank you. I think I'm getting old. I have to take off my glasses to read. From the outset, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make it clear that as well as standing for the board, I will be doing everything in my power to see Mike Lee back as your councillor. As a resident of the island since 1999, I was proud to represent Fulhams on the island of both running the port and liaising with various community groups and sporting organisations for nearly 14 years. I was also proud to serve a term as National Party Chair, working with Nikki Kay when she was our representative. I also served on the local board in the first term of the Super City. Sadly, in that term, I was not able to have the portfolios representing transport and tourism because of perceived conflict of interest. Those conflicts of interest no longer exist, and I'm not a member of any political party. If elected to the Waiheke Local Board, I will be a voice for the various community and sporting groups on the island, a voice for tourism, a voice for business. I am against three waters and co-governance, which I believe to be racist and will divide us as a nation. And whatever your politics might be, I hope there is a place for your thinking for me on your board. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said earlier, Kathy Boyles has been delayed. She will be here later, so we'll give her statement when she arrives. Greg Wyatt and Russell Chambers are the other two candidates who aren't with us here this evening. We have a number of questions now that we're going to run through. We'd like to get through as many of these as we can, so candidates, we're going to really ask you to be very brief with your answers as much as possible, so just kind of indicate your direction as quickly as you can. The first person I'll call up to the microphone just in front of me here, actually I'm worried that microphone's going to feed back horrendously where it is, but we'll see how that goes, is Doug.
Kia ora everyone. I would like to ask the current sitting members who are trying to be re-elected what they're proudest of in the last 3 years and what they regret the most. One sentence on both.
So there we go, it's a nice challenge. One sentence on what you're proudest of and what you most regret during the last term for the current sitting members. Robin Tucker.
Kia ora, thanks Doug for that question, I appreciate it. I'm most proud of the fact that after many years of advocating on the sidelines and about the ferries, that we actually have ferries on the way into the public transport system. That is going to be a huge benefit for Waiheke. I'm going to keep it short because we've got too many candidates. Lots of candidates. The one regret is that we weren't able to do that in this term. But we're nearly there.
Thank you. And just Susie, heads up, you'll be the next question. Cap Hanley.
I'm actually most proud of something quite recently because I get to sign off all of our submissions on government legislation of picking up that the National Planning Standard Urban Development, which has driven all of Auckland into a frenzy and all of the country, local government, did include us for high-rise. So I, in my capacity as redrafting at the end and sending it back to the members for approval, made a case to have Waiheke exempt from the Urban Design National Planning Standard and all other islands, because then I thought, well, that doesn't make sense, it's all islands. And immediately after submissions went in, all islands have been taken out of that. So we're not allowed to talk about people, but it's really hard not to. My greatest regret is not actually calling Paul to account publicly, not for not going to workshops, but not for doing anything. So all other board members have held at least 3 or 4 key responsibilities and have fed back into all of those 55 submissions. Nothing from Paul, no responsibilities held.
I think my proudest moment was stopping a full-service liquor store from taking over our food and vegetable store. It was a huge moment for me where we rallied together as a community to stop that process, and we also gave the feedback to the owners to look at the model in which we currently have and do it better than what it currently is, which is what they're doing now, and they're doing really well with that. My biggest regret, I think, is being a bit naive when I stepped onto the board and probably expecting too much from people that didn't really pull through.
And Paul, just before you answer that question, briefly, if you want to respond, you may to Kath's.
Thank you, Chris. So I think I'll answer the question first and then round back to Kath's observation.
Retaining brevity is an objective.
Thank you, Chris. So firstly, with respect to what I'm the proudest of, and I'd like to say that I'm the proudest of our community. This term it's been outstanding to see some of the work that's been done over the previous 2 terms that I was on the board, and in particular what jumps to mind is the outstanding work that the Sustainability Centre and the Waiheke Resources Trust are doing. Actually setting an example with tremendous work in wetland restoration and disc restoration and forest restoration generally on the island. That's a program that was kicked off some years ago with the support of this local board in an environment that council wasn't valuing some of those things that we value as a community. As to regrets, my greatest regret in this term is that a lot of my time and energy for the first half of the term was spent defending what looked and felt like a malicious prosecution by Auckland Council for works undertaken at my property to protect my family home from flooding, ironically from stormwater from the public road. And I note that all of those charges were dropped by the council. In response to Kath, and I guess it's sort of case in point reinforces my concerns and frustrations around local board workshops. At the first meeting of this local board, I can't remember the exact date, the local board established a series of responsibilities for local board members that Kath's alluded to. Those responsibilities were predetermined in a workshop before that meeting. There was no appetite to discuss changes for that. And so, Sarah, there was no responsibilities that were imparted to me at that meeting. Thank you.
It's a long sentence.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we might just insert a little snap poll of candidates here. Just on the topic of workshops, because it came up last time, and whether you believe workshops should be closed or open, and this is a simple yes/no. So I'm going to just, if you think they should, please raise your hand and keep it up.
Yeah, open.
Is this for open?
For open. So, okay, so just for the benefit of those listening on the radio, that's Olivia, Leah, Paul and Jim. Those who believe that they should remain as the status quo, which is a closed workshop. So we've got Robin, Norm, Kath and Kylie, and Bianca looks a bit undecided.
Well, I think it actually deserves a conversation.
Conversation? Okay, so that's,
Just saying yes or no.
Yep, good as gold. So that's the short of the straw poll, but just in the interest of getting an indication and keeping on with our questions from the public. Next up, asking a question on housing with Susie Newborn. This will be interesting given that there was a lot of support for the position of not intensifying housing through high-rise.
Kia ora koutou. I'm sure you know what I'm going to ask. So, if elected, what would you do to guarantee long-term affordable housing for long-time Waiheke residents who have contributed to the heart and soul of our motto? Simple question.
So what we do as a board member, Bianca, you're up first on this one.
Kia ora, Susie. Thank you very much for your question. I think that there needs to be real attention paid to this by the local board, and I also think that there is an opportunity for the local board to create a position for someone to be solely dedicated, someone who has the expertise and who is given the resources to tackle this. Because at the moment, there are people, long-time, intergenerational people who live on this island who cannot find somewhere to live. And that, for me, is a huge concern. The reason that is concerning is because we have an amazing, vibrant local economy of businesses, of vineyards, of tour operators, of conservation groups, of tradies that live here, but they also need accommodation. And what has happened is that there's been a priority around investing in real estate, investing in marina berths, over investing in community well-being. And if we don't have that well-being amongst our community, then what we have prided ourselves on as Waiheke for generations will be lost. So we need to find a way forward in which we can understand people's situations and interests, whether they own one home, whether they own two homes, whether they don't own a home, in a way that we can maintain a cohesiveness and a strength of community that is going to enable us to continue into the future. And that means that we start with those that are most vulnerable in our community. And those are the homeless, those are those that can't find housing, those that work for us and for our community to keep this island ticking over. So I believe that there's a real potential there. I think for that to land solely on the local board isn't fair. But we also need to look to other examples across the country and across the world of how a small community, and we can't send people to the urban edges of our community or our island, because that's literally over to Auckland to commute here to work. So we must find a solution here on island. We must prioritise the resourcing for that and figure out a way that we can make that work for everybody.
Thank you, Bianca.
Kia ora tātou.
So yeah, thank you. And there was, I think, in there, Susie asked for specific proposals about what people would do, and I heard you talk about having a dedicated position within the board to address that. So so please, candidates, I do need to ask you to keep your answers as succinct as possible. Robin, you are Robin Tucker. So again, we're looking for these specific, what can we do to address those issues of housing that Bianca laid out very clearly.
And some great ideas from Bianca there.
Just pull it
really
down, Robin. Just angle
role,
it down. Yeah. Just angle it. There you go.
Thank you. Our primary role is around advocacy, and we need to keep up the advocacy that we've got with central government. They are the ones that hold the funding keys to getting work done on the island in relation to housing, and that's where our energies need to go. We've also got our housing strategy in place, and there needs to be some weight put on that. And then the other contributors to that is advocating through Auckland Council to get funding from them, because obviously we don't hold the funding keys for that. So advocacy.
Norm Robbins.
Yeah, obviously there's some real underlying problems here in terms of wealth disparity and people being able to afford second homes. In terms of what we can do on the island, I think, as I alluded to in my first talk, I think we have to look at changing planning regulations to make more flexibility around the housing we can have. Sort of Papakainga type housing would be brilliant on the island, but it's applicating to those changes in the planning rules, I think.
Thank you. Ken Henley.
I'm with Norm about planning rules. We need changes. There are some things that can be done, and I said this at the housing hurry the other night. There is, as of right, people could convert visitor units now. They can't convert them there's a term I've forgotten. They can convert a visitor unit to a retirement unit. That is possible now, but there are changes that have to be made to the Waiheke Local Island District plan to achieve change. One of those changes does mean to facilitate with those larger employers in hospitality particularly, some more worker accommodation. So we do have one or two. We have some restaurants who bought houses for their key staff. We've got Manboard that's got a great big housing, a great big facility for staff. We need more of those to take the pressure off. And meanwhile, we have one, sort of, the Freedom Camping, with the Freedom Camping bylaw, where our resources over the summer can be dedicated to those people who have to live in vehicles, as opposed to any old tripper who comes here in a camper van to use. So that's what we've done at this current board, and that's the whole board, that's not me. Cheers.
Thank you. Blair Anderson.
Tēnā koutou. The one thing I would like to add, and I know that most other things have been talked about, is the development and the implementation of a community housing action plan, which would drive our outcomes and KPIs to delivering actual real housing to those that need it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this is decades in the making, this housing crisis. It's not something that is going to be fixed straight away, but short term we can revert the holiday accommodation units into long-term resident units. Straight away we can do that. And then the long term, what we need to look at is different forms of housing to what we currently have had. So we need to look at our tiny homes, we need to look at our earth homes, and we need to just look at a different form of living. So we no longer need to live in these big separate houses. We can live in these community sections that maybe have really good septic systems. Kia ora.
Thank you. Paul Walden.
Thank you, Kylie. Firstly, it's not acceptable to me that on Waiheke we have made it acceptable for families and people that we value in our community to be living in cars. So I would be happy to support a targeted rate if needed to help provide an immediate solution to that, and I think the low-hanging fruit there provides rests with better supporting our Living Waters Church, who have been providing emergency housing down in Surfdale and have been shackled over recent years with a raft of compliance issues. I think we need to learn from the example in Queenstown, and we need to be looking quite aggressively at the planning rules for the island. I think there's a range of short-term and longer-term solutions in that space. But fundamentally, where you've got large-scale high-end developments taking place down there, they provide a percentage of their development worth to the Queenstown Community Housing Trust, which is providing full social housing in the community. But the answer for our community into the future to preserve our diversity for our school teachers and our policemen and firemen, the beating heart of our community, rests with providing full social housing.
That's a reasonable equivalence, Paul.
And we need to have an open and honest conversation as a community, one that we can all have trust and confidence in, so that we can explore some of the real nitty-gritty challenging issues around things like expanding our rural-urban boundary and changing some of those things.
Thank you. Okay, Jim Hannon. These are, I want to acknowledge these are hard answers to answer in a short period of time because they're complex issues, and obviously we could spend many hours exploring these, and we do encourage you to follow up. We do encourage you to follow up.
I agree with
Robin. Hold on, Jim.
All right.
Hold on, Jim. So just, so yes, we do need to keep it brief, but we recognise that provides some difficulty canvassing some of these issues. Anyway, Jim, to you.
Okay, I agree with Robin. Local boards by themselves simply do not have the wherewithal. Central government must be involved. On the short-term things, holiday workers over here, I do think we could look at involving businesses much more, and I would highlight the likes of what Man of War are doing, but other businesses could help out as well for those summer jobs. But we must advocate to central government.
And Olivia Lecoeur.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I agree with Jim. I agree with Robin. Too much talk about nothing. Kath is talking about continuity. We don't want continuity because it's not going anywhere. We want whakanefa. We want kids. Hello, seriously. We want our workers to stay longer than 2 weeks. Did you know that you can only stay for 2 weeks at whakanefa? Yes. Can you raise your hand? All right. Okay. Hey, Susie, good question. In terms of housing, you cannot do anything, and especially in 3 years. Otago Sports Club, park. Not Otago. Oh my God. This is the only tanky. We can do something. Unfortunately, the rugby club is not really interested in having people, and Mr. Walden, because of horses, doesn't want to give the golf some space. So, hello, change is good.
Okay, we've moved from that to golf. just note we've got two builders standing, and neither of them offered to build a house. Nonetheless, just while Jan makes his way to the microphone, can I just ask, just by hands up, which candidates support the building of a community swimming pool? Yeah, everyone. Okay. So Jan is asking this question of everyone.
Good evening, kia ora. I just wanted to know about what your views are on the swimming pool. Would you get anything done? It's been going on for years now.
Decades.
So, decades even. So, what would you do? Is it realistic, or is it just a pipe dream here on Waiheke? Cheers.
All right, so we're going a sentence or two, no more, and we this time are starting with Norm, I think.
Money has to come from Auckland Council for this, obviously. I know some money's been raised on the island. I don't know how much exactly it is. But yeah, it is pushing Auckland Council, and they probably don't realise we need a pool because we've got sea around us, but that's not the case. Yeah, pushing Auckland Council.
Okay, thank you. Ken Hanley, I might have got the order wrong, I'm sorry if I did wrong.
There is already $250,000 invested in the pool society, the outcome of the pool society, who are intent now on redeveloping the pool, which is at the high school, having it covered, about that primary school, at Waiheke Primary School. The importance of keeping on working with them, and they are the ones who are looking to manage a pool long term. So there's already $250,000 set aside and a commitment from Council to the funding borrowings from this board of servicing $1 million.
Thank you. Leah.
Can I follow someone else?
You get to go first at some point.
No, I fully support the intention of a community swimming pool. I think our kids, they need to learn to swim in a safe environment. Although Enclosure Bay is a safe environment at times, a year-round opportunity for them to learn properly, get taught properly, has to be provided by us as the community leaders.
Kylie Matthews.
So I have been fortunate enough to be privy to what is in the bank at the moment, and there is money being saved, as Cass has said. That money is about to be drawn down by the Pool Society to be able to initiate what they want to do with that space. They're also working with the Ministry of Education to Ministry of Education is actually closing swimming pools at the moment, so they have to make sure that the Ministry is going to give them permission to build on that side.
Paul Warden.
Enthusiastic, yes, absolutely support this. The funding stream that's in place was one that the board that I was chairing established, and it provides for some research funding at the moment, but also money ongoing to service a loan to construct a pool. There's willingness now from the Waiheke Pool Society, who have developed a really positive relationship with Tihurahi School. And I would be really disappointed if we don't come out of this term with some, spades in the ground and an outcome in that space.
And Jim Hannon on the pool.
I have no idea where the money's coming from, but I do know the value of swimming pools. I lived in Perth for 20 years. Within 5 kilometres of where I lived, there were 5 swimming centres with 50-metre pools. No wonder Australians are so good at swimming. We want our kids to be swimming. We want them to be able to be tossed into the pool when they may be 8 months old, learn to swim. It is very, very important. If we really want this pool, we will find the money.
Yay. There you go. There's a slogan for you. Jim Hannon, throw kids in the pool. Olivia. No, you do go to the microphone because you're on the radio.
Hey, I think you need to change the board, because obviously they're all very good at talking and they cannot respect the 1 minute or 30 seconds. Get rid of the board. Now what we want the pool, not to, like tomorrow, we can do it. He talks about the pool, she talks about the pool, they talk about the pool, nothing has been done. Alright? You want to vote for these people? That's your choice.
Yeah, Franklin.
I knew this was going to be an entertaining evening. I just knew it. Okay, I was 5 years old when I learned how to swim in the Te Whitihi school pool. And it set me up for life. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We need a pool. We are surrounded by ocean. We need a safe place for our tamariki to learn how to swim. I saw the pool be developed in Kawerau and other communities which rangatahi really depend on as a place for connection, as a place for well-being, as a place for swimming safety. And it's kind of alarming that you get up and you're like, it's been decades in the making and we still don't have a pool. Let's get it done. Let's get a pool for our community.
To follow. So yes, we need a pool. There is planning underway for that. There is funding underway for that. I think the biggest thing the board has to do in the next term, in light of the COVID budgets for Auckland Council and the revenue holes that they have, is that we have to push really hard to make sure that we get our share of that funding for Waiheke.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to a few questions about the environment. So Hannah, you'll be up soon, but I'm going to start off with a question that was submitted by Alex Stone. Those of you who know Alex will know it was a very lengthy question, and so I've kind of drawn it down into something a bit shorter, which is about marine protection in the Hauraki Gulf. So, the board obviously takes an interest, plays advocacy role, and will kind of lend support to different directions on how we protect the marine environment and the Hauraki Gulf. So my summation of Alex's question is, what do you believe the board's position should be on protection of the marine environment and the Hauraki Gulf? Norm, we're starting with you. Don, did we start with you last time? Okay, I've lost track. We'll start with Kat Hangley.
Kia ora. I think the board needs to be really active in this space, which it has been, but there is legislation which at the moment is outdated, which enables marine reserves, and we've seen the process for the current one, but actually going forward, marine protected areas are the answer, in my view, that they are the new gold standard. I work on as the current representative for Waiheke on the Hauraki Gulf Forum, and moved the motion to move to 30% marine protection. I also, when the Rahui was imposed here, thankfully, by Ngāti Pawa, we convened a special board meeting to get the board unanimously voting behind that. So I then take that to the governing body and mayor, and they unanimously supported it. So I'm highly active in this space, but the board must be. We don't have a choice. We live in the Gulf. We are entirely responsible for playing our part to improve the health and reconstitute the health of the Gulf. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah Anderson.
I think the board has a responsibility more than a need to be active in this area. We need to show leadership, or the board will need to show leadership. Sorry, I'm not elected, but and there are a number of different ways of doing that, and we've seen, as Kath mentioned, that are being placed. We have seen an application for a marine protected environment or marine reserve, and we see the Reuter family over in Otata, or the Noises, working on different plans for that area. In my view, I think the marine reserves are archaic. The 1971 Act has well and truly done its time, and technologies and methodologies have changed, and so we can do better than that. That's my view.
Carly Matthews.
We are on the brink of a collapse of our ecosystem. We have coda species that are functionally extinct, and we need to do something. We have a goal of 30%. Currently, we're not even near that goal, and so we do need to advocate for more, and we need to do more as a community around highlighting this topic of marine protection, but also I think until something really awesome comes along and something that's way more stronger than just locking it up and throwing away the key, which is the current marine reserve. But I think that we've had a great opportunity as a community to support the marine reserve application that we have done, and I look forward to doing more in this space.
Paul Walden.
We have some existing legislation alluded to tonight, the Marine Reserves Act. We have an application currently in front of the Minister of Conservation, and we should be doing everything we can as a community to support that and get that across the line. We accept, embrace the concept of reserves terrestrially, and we have plenty of them. There's a massive raft of opportunity to doing things differently and into the future. What our communities, not just on Waiheke but regionally, have said is that we want to be seeing 30, 40, 50% of the waters of the Gulf protected. And there's some really interesting progressions in Resource Management Act and other specific legislation that can provide for some of those wider scale opportunities. But today, here and now, we need to get this one across the line. Thanks.
Jim Hannon.
I know that people like Alex Stone and Mike Lee have been working on this issue for at least 10 years. I support them in that. But we do need to get our fish stocks up. So I would certainly work with Mike Lee when he gets to be our new councillor. Thank you.
Olivia?
That's good on you. That's a great endorsement. I'm not a fisherman. I sell coffee. Some of you might know me. Hello, Sarah Lee. I sell coffee every day at Kennedy Point. I see dozens and dozens of boats, hundreds of people fishing on a weekly basis. Everyone, except some of these people who don't fish, are happy. So I'm not too sure. Obviously, there will be some paperwork. Obviously, I'm happy with the reserve. I think we could manage the stock, maybe 2 years off, 1 year off, something like that. Nonetheless, we're okay. I'd like you to, the fish are all right. Okay, we need to look after our roads. We need to look after our people.
You can come to roads in your statement later. Bianca Ransom.
Okay, so the Hauraki Gulf Forum, which is contracted by the Auckland Council, has proved over the last 20 years with the State of the Gulf reports that the Hauraki Gulf is an ecological collapse. For anyone who lives on the island and has lived experience with our ocean knows that, because all you have to do is go down to the ocean and put your head under the water to see it. We have to be pragmatic in our approach. We are in a climate and biodiversity crisis. This isn't about politics, this isn't about relationships, this is about protecting our ocean by every single means possible, because it is necessary. I 100% support the Hākai Marine Reserve. I 100% support the Hauraki Gulf Alliance, which I was a part of forming, which currently has a petition for the ending of bottom trawling, Danish seining and dredging within the Hauraki Gulf. I 100% support the MPAs and the HPAs that are proposed throughout the Hauraki Gulf, because time has run out and we need to protect our marine environment, and we need to think about the ocean and everything that lives within it before we think about people and politics, because the time is now for us to act. The evidence is clear, the research is out. Kia ora.
Yes.
Yeah, what hasn't been said, as Bianca said, there's plenty of evidence that it's a dire situation out there in the Gulf. I submitted in favour of the Hakamanga Marine Reserve, and I'm sure there's more scope for more marine protection areas. At 30% would be the right target. Maybe we need to reduce the catch limits as a shorter term measure as well. There's so many people out there fishing these days, just grabbing more than they need.
And our 10th candidate, Kathy Boyles, has arrived. So I'll let you choose which order you do this in, Kathy. We've just been listening to answers about what people believe the board's stance should be on marine protection and the protection of the Hauraki Gulf. So you can either start with that, or you can start with your 1.5 minute statement. Up to you, but you step to the mic and will surprise us. Kathy Boyles, just angle it down so you're nice and straight to it.
Kia ora koutou, ko Kathy Boyles tō ingoa, and how lovely to make it. I like to make an entrance. And marine protection, state of the Gulf, perilous, it's a disaster out there. We are on a knife's edge, and that's why I'm part of Protect Our Gulf, which has been in court with Ports of Auckland. We don't want any more dredging, and we don't want that dredge, which is possibly contaminated, to be dumped out in the EEZ.
It's nice and close to the mic, Kathy.
So, but so much to do, and completely to echo what Bianca said, it's so important. We can waste no time. Bottom trawling, disaster, should be banned immediately. Yesterday, a decade ago. It's barren out there. And my 1.5 minutes,
yep.
if I may?
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So I am standing here because I am completely so engaged with this community. I'm a hard worker. I have my ear to the ground. I am a fully endorsed Green Party member, and that tells you a lot, because my ideology is green. It's climate emergency, it's environment, it's people, place, and this motu. It is so important to me. Now, we've got some extraordinary assets on this island, and those assets are you. We are the experts in the problems in this community, and we are the solutions. The solutions are local, community. We know what the problems are: affordable housing, environment, crumbly roads, paths. All of our roads are shallows. We share them. We share them with bicyclists, dog walkers, horses, and cars. We have to make them safe. That's absolutely vital. So I'm an activist, I'm an advocate. I don't give up easily, as you will know. We did not give up for years on the Moana. I was part of SKP. Now I'm part of Protect Our Gulf, and I'm very, very keen to be part of this local board, to keep on being advocate for you, the community. Sorry, a bit of a rush today. I've just gone from food rescue.
And that's 1.5 minutes, Kathy, I'm sorry.
And welcome to the debate, Kathy. Is Hannah around? So we'll get you to step up to the microphone, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Kath, because until you spoke, the only person who spoke about climate action was in fact Bianca. And we have a climate emergency, and it is the one thing that this local board is going to have to advocate for and have practical solutions for. And so in that respect, I would like to ask all the members who are standing for this board, at the end of April, this local board endorsed basically our community solutions for transport, public transport on the island, and the first support was for increasing public transport routes and accessibility on Waiheke as the best way to dramatically reduce transport emissions. So I would like to ask all of you, what will you do? Will you implement this solution, and how you will do it, and how you will support the community to do it?
Thank you. So we're starting with you, Blair, this time. Blair Anderson.
Kia ora. Yes, fully support the development and the increase of public transport. As a sidebar, my wife drives the buses, so I fully support that notion as the key way of reducing the amount of traffic on the road, the carbons being released into the atmosphere. One problem that we will have to overcome is the size of the electric buses and the damage that they do to our roads as they traverse around the island. So that certainly has technology changes that we may be able to deal with rather quickly.
Kylie Matthews.
We need to stop cars from coming over from the other islands, or from onto the island, and then just work with the cars that we do have, our tradesmen and our residents, and then encourage all of our visitors to cycle, to use public transport, or to hire cars that are currently on the island. Implementing the plan, Hannah, you've come up with so many really awesome ideas that has been, we've really looked into those ideas and stuff, and it's been a little bit of a battle getting them through the door, and I hope that this next term that we will implement those a lot more. Thank you.
Paul Walden.
So the question was around increased PT route accessibility. So a few things I'd like to see this local board doing. One is to support a review of the current bus routes. There's some instinctive anomalies that I can see with some of the usage, and having commuted daily on the bus that runs up Ossian Road, I know how well utilised that was, and I think we need to have a review that actually looks and reflects actively with our community on where our population rests in context of where the buses are going. There's clearly some things that aren't working, and only last weekend I witnessed some of our elders stranded at Martetia when all 3 buses left before the ferry had disembarked. And that's not right, we've lost something special at the point in time that our bus services come unsynced with the ferry service. We need to be looking aggressively at developing vehicle parking at bus stops. Not a big parking right in Ossian, but all the little bus stops around the island should be having comfortable shelters and adequate parking close to those there. And as we've got a mayor or a mayoral candidate that's talking about free public transport, yes, we should be supporting that. But as an immediate low-hanging fruit to start with, we should be chasing aggressively to get our school children back on free buses to and from school, because there's a heck of a lot more parents that are driving to and from school regularly today. It's not technically a PT issue, but that's, again, is a really important piece of low-hanging fruit, because aside from the practicalities,
thank you, Paul. Sorry,
it's instilling cultures and habits for young people, and that's important.
Thank you.
I think it's about climate change.
Paul has pretty well said it all for me, but I think one thing we do need to consider, and that is that Auckland Transport only a couple of weeks ago said they were nearly $250 million in the hole on budgeting, and they're putting off projects. So I would need to know where the money is coming from. Also, as a regular bus user, very often I'm the only person on the bus. So we need to get that usage up for sure to get any kind of viability.
Alright, my first comment would be, oh my God. Alright, so we've got this gentleman here who is against, or wants to review the parking strategy, who this morning at 8:20 was parked in front of Countdown with his big truck. Alright, so he's got no clue. Okay, I'm asking the question. I'm the only cyclist here. Now, we cannot do anything. The public transport is a misery. It's never going to happen because you want a car, you want a badge. Humans always want more. All right? They're never going to travel in buses. Either you're realistic or you're a dreamer. Common sense.
Okay, who cycles here?
Me. No, you don't.
Excuse me. Well, over to your question, Hannah. You are one of the experts on the island on buses. You've compiled reports for AT, and it's absolutely true. The buses are too big. People are not taking them. I suggest, who said a review of the routes? Really important. But we've got to make people feel safe when they walk, when they cycle, and the buses have to join up with the ferries. There has to be flexibility there. And I think it was Julianne Genter who
was talking about, you know, actually having something where you could get 5 or 6 people, you dial in and you get a bus on demand. And I think that could be the answer for Rocky Bay, a much smaller bus. And I know in Capri they have double deckers, but they're tiny little double deckers. So our roads are narrow. And I don't know about Tanya when she drives, but you know, as a cyclist, you feel quite frightened when you can hear the bus coming out. That's not true. Sorry. Anyway, I totally support anything that gets people out of their fossil fuel cars, and I personally feel incredibly guilty when I do have to take the car, and I do for food rescue and other stuff. But you know, let's share cars. That would be so good. More share e-cars on the island.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kia ora, thank you very much for raising the issue of climate change, which is literally threatening our existence as human beings on this planet at the moment. I fully support the local board in the move from to electric buses, which has already started. It was a fantastic launch of that last year, I believe it was. And also, I think that there's a lot more that Waiheke can do in terms of us actually being an example to Auckland, being an example to the rest of the country and to the world. We have a unique opportunity here on Waiheke as the 3rd most populated island in Aotearoa to really take climate change seriously, and we have done that with the Climate Action Plan, which was approved by the local board in December 2021, which I had input into, and which I feel is a leading example. We need to lower our emissions in many ways, not just public transport, but in terms of food waste. We need to also be advocating for the change that we need to see. We can stand up here and argue about who cycles and who doesn't, but at the end of the day, it is the big polluters, the big companies, the oil companies and dairy that need to be held to account, and we as local board can help to advocate for that as well.
Thank you. Don't stop for a breath. You're going to lose your chance.
With regards to the transport network, I agree with Paul. We need a review of the bus network. I would really like to see Waiheke adopt a mixed fleet approach to our buses and right-size that fleet for where we need to go. We've got narrow winding roads, we've got really dispersed populations in lots of areas, and they need to meet the ferries. So a review of the bus network definitely needed.
Norm Robbins.
Yeah, as Hannah knows, we had a lot of looking at the review of the bus network last time round. It's been in place for a while now. We know it's not all working. I really enjoyed being the only person on the 501 bus, but it's not really very economical. It doesn't tie in with the ferry down at Kennedy Point anyway, it's a bit pointless. So yes, we need a review of the bus network. I think ultimately we will have probably smaller on-demand buses. I think it has been trialled somewhere on the North Shore, I think, already. It's quite expensive at the moment, but ultimately I think that's probably the way it's going to go. Then in the meantime, yes, we need to review the bus network. It's very sort of an Auckland-centric sort of look, talking about hubs and spokes at the moment, which doesn't really apply to the island here.
Just to follow up what Norm just said, it was trialled on the North Shore, it didn't work, wrong place. It has been trialled now in South Auckland and it's working brilliantly. So that is dial in, you can just dial up and a van comes and picks up people and decides the ideal route. I think that is the way of the future. I think that e-transport and no driver is coming and it's going to come very fast, and there's no reason why Waiheke isn't an ideal place to do that. I agree with the rerouting or the reframing of our transport network. I do use the buses. Didn't tonight. I walked, because it was only 20 minutes or so. So I'm all for the transport emissions reduction plan that now passed by council and our low carbon plan, which I've had a lot of input in, and a lot of the legislation I was talking about, and I didn't mention it, Hannah, is about climate change and its impacts, and it's about the reduction of waste. So there is an enormous amount of work being done legislatively, but we have to do it locally. And we do that we have to do that advocating effectively with Auckland Transport to get a review in place, but to look at lateral ways of dealing with things. Just having smaller buses is not the answer.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are rapidly running out of time, and we're not going to get through all of the questions. So I've got one more question which has been submitted. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it from here in the interest of speed. And then following that, I'm going to give you all a very, very short time to do just a final statement. You're probably only going to have about 45 seconds. But, you know, that's all right. What that will show is that you're a sharp thinker and you can be succinct. We want that in our local board. So that's the challenge for you. But the question I do want to get to before that, because I think it's important, is what do you think needs to happen on the board to develop and enhance, build relationship with mana whenua and Māori? So that's the question, and then we'll get into your final sum-ups. I think we're starting with you, Kylie.
So I'd like to see us actually support mana whenua financially to be able to feed back into our plans. At the moment they're like resource poor and they don't have enough time to be able to put into taking on all of our demands and questions. So if we were to resource them, then that would give us also the ability to have the plans all put forward. And then relationship building is that we just need to repatriate our mana whenua back to the motu so that we can start having this relationship. Kia ora.
Paul Waldron.
Thank you for the question. As at the last election, we've got a unique opportunity here on Waiheke in that we have a community, pan-tribal marae Puratahi concept of together as one. And the Puratahi marae has a committee which is democratically elected annually. And I'd like to see the board co-opt as a advisor and as a representative to sit alongside the board to support us as a local board in all of our decision making, but also as we build our relationships with the various iwi and hapu that have tangata whenua status, but also mana whenua interests on Waiheke.
Thank you. Jim Hannon.
Yes, we work closely with the marae, and I can work closely with anyone, regardless of race or creed.
Olivia LePearl.
I'll be like Jim, actually. I think we're all in this together. I've been involved with the marae because I'm a criminal, but other people here. And I had to do a periodic detention. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, let's be honest. Yeah, we'll see. Mr. Walden, are you a criminal? Anyway, hey, let's be honest. The marae is fantastic. I'm a wiwi, which is a Maori of French descent. It's in the dictionary. And I would like the board to work with the marae even better.
Totally support what Kylie and Paul said. Very important to work with iwi and hapu and of course our wonderful marae and the gorgeous Mara gardens which have sprung up over 2 years, 1 year Bianca. So yeah, and learn more all the time. Learn more about Te Tiriti and Peo Māori and to respect that and to work along with iwi.
Kia ora tātou. First of all, I'd like to say that it's really exciting to have tangata whenua and mana whenua here standing for the local board. There was a treaty signed between our ancestors, and so because of that we have an incredible opportunity to be able to really think about how we can incorporate both of our cultures into the future of our island. I 100% support the incredible leadership of Ngāti Pāwa with the placing of the rāhui for the protection of our marine environment. I think that Piritahi Marae that has stood down at Te Hurahi for over 40 years now has provided so many services for this island. The Hauora that has thousands of people go through, the marae that engages thousands of people, the childcare that has dozens of tamariki there every single day, the Mara that has grown an incredible community there over the last 2 years. And I think that those efforts need to be amplified. When you look around Waiheke and you see the dominant culture that is on this island, it isn't Māori, but what our perspective and what Te Ao Māori can offer to those hearts and minds that are open to our beliefs around the environment, around people, and around well-being, you will only find that it will add beauty and depth to your lives, and it's nothing to be threatened of. And I absolutely 100% support mana whenua efforts and tangata whenua mā tāwaka efforts on this island. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I would also like to see a more formal relationship develop with mana whenua, and as Paul said, perhaps what sort of relationships could we develop more formally with Piritahi as well. We certainly do that informally at the moment. We have formal ways in which we engage with mana whenua, but I would like to see those improved over the next term.
Yeah, I certainly feel we seem to have a fairly harmonious relationship with the island, with Piritahi Marae. I think there could well be scope for having regular meetings. If you actually schedule something, working between the local board and the marae would be great. As I see in my job, checking stoke traps, I go over Waiheke Station, and that's something that I gather there's still some issues with treaty assessment with regards to that. But once that's sorted, there's real opportunities on Waiheke Station. It's 500 hectares of land that's not being used well at the moment, and there's opportunities there for tree planting, for agriculture, for plant nurseries and so on. So I think that there's scope there in the future.
I think it's important not to confuse Piritahi Marae and its relationship with the local board and the question around relationships with mana whenua. That Ngāti Pāwa and other iwi, there are different areas of Waiheke, but in terms of treaty settlement with the Crown, it is Ngāti Pāwa that will have that, both the settlement and the obligations that go with it. So those are two different relationships, and I certainly would never ask Piritahi Marae to broker relationships between the board and mana whenua, and I think that would be deeply offensive, to be honest. So it's really important. We've got an extraordinary marae. We have a candidate who's on the committee. We have a Ngāti Pāwa candidate. I think you've got choices here. I think all of this could add value to the board. The board does have, and always has, for a few years, has had a great relationship with Piritahi Marae, including meetings. COVID did away with that for good reason, because Marae wasn't functioning. The current board and the previous one has also kept in touch and through special grants from Piritahi and got ahead of their strategic plans. So the board has been, and my commitment would be continue to, support Piritahi Marae in every way possible as a hugely and deeply important part of the makeup of our community. It's just a vital thing. Thank you.
Blair Randerson.
Tēnā katoa anō. As tangata whenua, as mana whenua, this is quite a difficult question to answer. Because I don't want to seem, in our terms, whakahihi, in terms of being expectant on what we expect of you. I would say, I would agree with Kath though, that the marae has a very important part to play in this community. And that was, I'll call it signed off by my tupuna many years ago. and the authority given to the marae Piritahi to operate. And through the years, Tainui Ngāti Pāoa people have supported the marae to provide support to this community in kaupapa Māori. I stand as a candidate to represent our Ngāti Pāoa people, our Ngāti Kapu and Ngāti Urahapu here from the island. And it's an opportunity for me, yes, to represent and bring that perspective to the table, whilst I can also bring my many years of experience as the governor on many private and public boards and groups. And so I would ask you to take a good look at what it is that you want on your board, representing you as the constituents, and whether out of the 12 of us who've put our names forward, we have those skills that you are looking for. And so as Ngāti Pāoa, as the hapu of this island, we will support the board that is selected. Tēnā
tātou. Look, apologies to people who have put questions forward that haven't been asked. We're simply out of time on that, and we are going to, I think Blair Anderson there kind of started into a summation of the evening, which is where we're going to go now. So we're going to give candidates 30 seconds each. 30 seconds, they've got to be sharp. This will show you whether they can do this, right? 30 seconds to just sum up, respond to the evening, and then we'll wrap things up. Paul, you're up first for this one.
Thank you, Chris. Listen, I think we're looking at a wonderful spread of local board candidates here, and we're privileged as a community to have such a range of talent that's put their hands forward. We're in a unique space and time. Auckland Council, our local board's been through an evolution from the outset through that middle period where I think we would have to be described as the most revolting community in Auckland with our breakaway campaigns. But all of that has helped Auckland Council to evolve into a better place. We've got some big challenges ahead that we have to address as a community.
Thank you, Paul. Jim Hannon. That was pretty good, Paul. That was pretty good. Jim Hannon.
I will be supportive of tourism. I will be supportive of business. I will work with community groups on the island. Many of you know me as a very keen walker and biker. At all times I will have a pad with me and a pen. If you want to stop me, I'll get your name, I'll write your question down, and I will get back to you. I will listen.
I would observe there are some other people who walk around the island with pads and pens, and they wear blue uniforms. Olivia LeCoeur, your 30 seconds.
Actually, it's not about me, I'm standing for you. And I'm at Kennedy Point every morning until 11. I got lots of people who ask me questions on a daily basis. My wife doesn't drive buses. I'm not standing for Ngāti Pāoa, no, but I stand for everyone. We're all in this together. My girlfriend cleans toilets, your toilets. I'm involved with programs on a daily basis. Vote for me. All right, I love you guys.
Thank you. Andy Boyle. Want to commend people for keeping to their 30 seconds as well.
Yeah. I would like to say it's very important to have a like-minded board that are voted in, because together we can be an incredibly strong advocate. And that is the power of this community. We have the solutions. You are all experts. We know what we need to do, but please vote for a like-minded board that you know their ideologies and their backgrounds from.
Well done, everybody, for getting through the last hour and a half. But I'd just like to say that thank you very much for coming along. I am 100% committed to working with whoever you choose to be on the local board for the next term. I would certainly like to be one of those people, and I am also, as a first-time local board candidate, really looking forward to working with the more experienced local board members who will be returning this term. And thank you very much for coming tonight. Kia ora.
Robin Tucker.
Nice. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. As Bianca said, I think it's really, really important that you as the constituency vote in people who are going to show up and do the work. It's no point in being voted on if you're not going to turn up and you're not going to do any work. We're here to do the work of this constituency.
Waiheke's climate action plan's a big one for me. I alluded to a few comments in my opening talk. I'm active in predator control. I'm involved in native plant restoration and so on. A couple of community projects on that. I'm an engineer. I understand a lot of technical things. We need to mobilise the community on climate action. When Chloe Swarbrick was here a few weeks ago for Kathy's launch of a campaign, she said Waiheke's already a long way in front of most places, and we need to keep going forwards and be a leader still.
Kia ora. Whether you vote for me or not, I don't think that's material. I think it'd be just great to get a board that is diverse, that can have some good arguments, which if you listen to the board meetings, that where decisions are taken, that is what we have achieved. 100 grand, keep that in mind, that is for the 3 years for a board member roughly. So I'm with Robin. Earn the 100 grand, put together people with the skills and experience. Thank you.
Sorry, I think Chris was right. I misread the situation earlier and I've already done my sum up. So I would just like to say thank you to everybody. Look, from what I heard tonight, there's just lots to do, little time to do it. And we need to prioritise what we can do, what are our overhanging fruits, and you will tell us what they are, and so that we can get the job done.
We need to work with community, we need accountability from community, we need you to be involved, to show up at the public forums and the community forums and let us know what you need and what you want. And Waiheke needs Wahine tour. Kia ora.
All right, that brings us to the end. So look.
I just want to thank Chris Walker. Waiheke Radio is completely run by volunteers and we all love doing what we do, but none of us will be able to do what we do without the coordination of Chris Walker, and it's long overdue that we thank him.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you. First of all, I want to thank some people. First of all, I want to thank the candidates. You know, no matter what your position is on their policies, on their kaupapa, they've put themselves forward to serve their community, and I think we should acknowledge that. Thank you all very much to all of you for turning up this evening. Apologies again for those of you who had questions that we didn't get to. The bar, I believe, is still going to be open for a bit, so you can still have a drink, have a chance to mingle with the candidates and follow up those questions with them. Voting papers will start to be delivered from the 16th of September. It's a postal vote. You've got to get those in by noon on the 8th of October to have your vote count. You're voting for 5 candidates in our local board, as well as, of course, as the ward election for councillor and the mayoral election. So, yeah, please participate. Before we say goodnight, just a reminder, we're having a fundraising movie for Waiheke Radio on the 29th of September, David Bowie's Moon Age Daydream. It will be the first screening on the island. Tickets are $20, including supper and spot prizes. If you've got you've got a green one with the Queen on it in your pocket and you'd like a ticket, then please come and see us afterwards. Thank you again to candidates, listeners, everyone here. Democracy is a great thing, isn't it?